Good day, good people. Yesterday, the government announced a further 3 weeks of lockdown, so the new patterns of life that we've begun to adopt will have to continue for a while longer. Last Sunday, of course, marked the end of 40 days of Lent and the beginning of 50 days of Easter, and we celebrate the profound hope that comes from the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. From our parish network, we're finding that many of us are managing and adjusting to the changes. But there is sadness at plans forestalled, families unable to be together, work put on hold, and in some cases, the future uncertain. Here at St Francis Church, we're striving to sustain our life of worship, community and service, and we're doing this principally through electronic media, telephones and posting information and updates to those who don't have access to computers and smartphones. To help us think about ways in which we cope with social isolation and contribute to our community and the wider world, we're planning to develop 2 new pages for our website. One are resources for living in a time of social isolation, and another, ideas for ways of helping and engaging with our neighbours in need, and to provide corresponding paper copies as well. Over the coming weeks, I'd be very glad to hear from anyone who might have ideas of things that we can add to these pages, or reflections or suggestions that you would like us to share with the wider church family. In addition, users of Facebook can connect with the St Francis Newcastle Communications Group, where people are already sharing links, images, music and other forms of encouragement and support. None of this replaces the events and activities that form so much part of our common life, but they do enable us to keep connected with each other as much as we can, and perhaps also to notice the slower pace and the space of being able to ponder the implications without having to rush into conversations or engaging with other people is actually giving us more time to ponder and reflect. As well as our weekly Sunday worship, the worship resources page of our website has links to daily worship from the BBC and also Church of England daily morning and evening prayer. There's also a free app called Time to Pray for prayer in the daytime and night prayer, and for a small subscription it's possible to get a daily prayer app with morning and evening prayer. And don't forget the prayer booklet that we distributed at the start of this season of separation, and we can send you further copies if these are required. Just let me know. Perhaps you've a neighbour or a family member who might appreciate it. Do you also remember the Live Lent booklets that we made available at the start of Lent, with a daily reflection for the season? Well, the Church of England has reissued an Easter Pilgrim version produced last year, with 40 reflections from Easter Day to Ascension Day. We've ordered some and we'll distribute them in the next few days. The booklet offers daily prayers and reflections based on the Lord's Prayer to help and sustain us. There is, of course, an online version as well, so you can download that as an app or go online and listen to the reflection prayer and hear a piece of music as well. The purpose of prayer is to put us in the mind of God, not so much to remind God about ourselves, for remember, he already knows, but to remind ourselves of God's purpose, to discern his mind in what is happening around us. This means the object of our prayers are those changes that we think God would want to happen, whether it is healing, justice, or reconciliation. For these are the things for which our world longs. It's certainly a time to discern what is truly important, where our heart truly lies, how we might live differently when we will no longer be forced to live apart from each other. Our patron, St Francis, frequently went off alone to pray, often in inhospitable places, in order to come close to God. And I do encourage you to examine the thought that we most often encounter God in the hard and difficult times of life, as well as in the blessings. Having said that, Francis was also deeply bound with his brothers and sisters in the Friars Minor and the Poor Clares, and he wept for love of them when they were together as much as when they were apart. But most of all, he wept for the plight of the poor and all who evoked in him a sense of God's calling. And this is a call on all our lives which we must not neglect in our prayers and in our actions, even when so much else in our lives is being forestalled. Last week I sent out news from the West End Food Bank. Do support them if you can, and may you be blessed in your blessing of others, and so become a dwelling place for God's Holy Spirit.